So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our podcast. So Jack and I are here today with Gareth and Joe from The Right Path. We're here today to talk about some of the work that the guys are doing in their locality, what they're achieving, what they're supporting young people to experience. But also we're here today to talk about some of the work that Jack and I have been developing and making available to children and young people that Gareth and Joe are going to be supporting as well. And that really is around the new book that's available to children and young people, In the Shadows, and also a little bit of the growth mindset. So it's a little bit about how that sort of resource is available for young people, how it works, what the benefits are, and how it can be helpful for as many children and young people as possible across the areas that we both work in. So good morning, guys. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. Really appreciate your time. Morning, Jack. So talk to us about the new resource.
Yeah, so off the back of the growth mindset book, which I wrote it's been an ongoing theme for the last few years now. However, we've got to the point now, we published the growth mindset, which was a huge success last end of November, which has led through to In the Shadows now, where we've kind of gone from looking at young people in how they feel about themselves, building self-identity, resilience, building confidence, and looking at ways that they can be themselves and step away from having to follow and go into secondary school and then all the issues that they face there, to now looking at In the Shadows, which looks at the dangers that teens do face today. And I think it's really difficult nowadays to be a teenager, especially with the dangers of social media and role modelling and kind of music and everything else that glamorises certain lifestyles. So what we've done is we've created a resource as such, which we've done it over at the Mentoring Project and then sent it over to the guys at The Right Path, who have basically supported us in pulling it apart, looking at it, and adding the value from their experience as well. So, guys, if I can hand over to you to give us a bit of an introduction on The Right Path and kind of what led you to getting involved with the Mentoring Project on the book, if that's okay.
Yeah, so just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Joe Cole. I'm director at The Right Path, founded The Right Path with Gareth Rogers.
Just done a great introduction for me. Yeah, Gareth Rogers, another fellow director. There are three of us that hold a directorship within the organisation. There's also Kerry Holness, who's not with us today because she's grafting all day, every day, bless her. So as an organisation, we are a specialist SEMH service that has the privilege, I would say, of supporting many young people across the West Midlands and West Mercia. We work with young people that are at risk of criminalisation. We work with young people that are experiencing barriers in their personal and also their academic progress and performance. We work with young people that are on the radar of the police a lot of the time for various different potential criminal circumstances that they're coming under, whether that's harmful sexual behaviour, whether that's knife crime, theft, robbery, gang culture, various different things. And over the last 5 years, Joe and I have been very fortunate to grow our organisation, not to a huge standpoint, but we have a fantastic group of staff that work with us as well. And yeah, so far so good. Met Jack. It's got to be 3 years now, mate.
Yeah, so at least
leaning into 3.5, 4 years
at the
ago.
Conference.
Yeah.
Conference.
Yeah, but we spoke a little bit before then. We had the introduction at the conference, didn't we? Where we looked like the worst boy band in history.
I think I showed you a photo of that the other day, didn't I?
Yeah.
I think we all went a little bit too smart, didn't we? Looked like a boy's own throwback.
Yeah, well, you two did. I always look like your manager.
I'll take that. You would have been the lead singer. I've definitely been backing vocals. But yeah, so we met Jack a while ago. I think our organisations align with the objectives that we have to support young people, and not only the young people we support at The Right Path, we have the pleasure of working with staff and schools as well. So anything you'd like to add to that, Joe?
Yeah, I just think both of our organisations are focused on the issues and the areas that most impact young people's progress and development. And I think that, I think ethically as well, we like the way that Jack works. We see Jack as an inspiration to us as well. And yeah, like his passion and his drive for what he's doing has been very clear from day one. So for us, it's just natural relationship, really. So yeah, we're pleased to be here.
Yes, thank you.
No, that's perfect. And again, I think what people may not know is for over the last 12 months, the mentoring project has basically joined forces with Aspire and Thrive, which is an alternate provision in, I would say Coventry and Warwickshire, but now it goes Leicestershire, Northamptonshire, Warwickshire,
Nottingham.
So literally, it's going far afield, and obviously Dave owning that, I now own part of Aspire and Thrive. Dave now owns part of the mentoring project. So again, when this book was being created from our end, it went through Dave and Cam, who's head of service at Aspire and Thrive. And then once we were happy, our end with what we'd got, it then come over to you guys. So it's kind of been through, like Cam again, phenomenal background with young people. But it's just kind of, for me, that kind of, peer review, that honesty. And I think you guys come back to me, and we're going to talk about the book in a minute. You come back to me with a load of things that me and Dave then looked at, because again, it's like, although the mentoring project got a really great relationship with young people and we feel we do an unbelievable job, we're not the only ones that do the job. And you guys bring something different to the table than what we bring. So actually, to have the four of us behind what this looks like, I don't see how it could be much more powerful than what it is with them relationships and stuff like that. Can you lads just give a little bit of your backgrounds as well? Because again, people that don't know, me and Dave have done about 10 of these, so I don't think we need to bore people again, do we, with mine and Dave's kind of history. But
Nobody wants to know.
But what kind of, Joe, what led you down this path of working with young people and stuff like that?
Thank you for that question. So there was a local community centre, the Maypole Youth and Community Centre. Big up Pete Norman. He was a great guy, real community man, and had a huge impact on my life and other young people's lives around the area. It was back in the day when we had community centres in most areas, so it was real like hub of the area. The heartbeat is where your parents would run in there trying to find their kids and they knew there was around somewhere. Do you know what I mean? So Pete Norman, like, he just took me under his wing, and like literally when I left school, I think probably to date I'm probably the youngest employee ever for Birmingham City Council. And so, because when I left school, what I was doing is taking my decks, I was DJing at the time, I was taking my decks into the youth centre, and then I was sharing my skills with the other young people in the area. So like upskilling other young people and giving them an interest, into music. And by sharing that, I think they saw that in me, that actually, like, even though he's amongst his peers, he could probably do this anyway and support us with connecting with the young people in the area. So that's exactly what they did. And so they give me a job. I work part-time with them. And then I went to college. I was with them for probably too long a period as well. I'd probably outgrown the role. But I think I was just at that point in my life where I didn't really know where I wanted to go. And I think a lot of young people experience that, don't they? Where they're like, what's my life going to look like? Yeah. What direction do I go in? And I was in that place, but I kind of got a bit stale really, because I'd won awards and stuff like that for the work that we've done. We went to London, we got awards for that, because what we was doing is I ended up working with young people that were in school struggling, and they were coming out for like an hour, 2 hours to spend time with me, so they could use music as a form of like a catharsis, really, a medium where they could transfer what they was experiencing in life onto music. And it was one of the first times that was being done. So when we ended up winning an award in London anyway, and that was really good. But I still didn't really, the penny didn't drop with actually, I might be onto something here. Do you know what I mean? So went to college anyway. And that was when I realised, actually, I want to work in education. School was difficult for me. Didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. But my PE teachers were fantastic with me. So my love for sport, they would often say, look, if you kick off in maths today, science, you weren't playing in a school game. That was devastating for me, because that was the time when a lot of schools had the leagues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you had like school nationals and stuff like that. And so it was a real carrot. And I started connecting the dots with that actually with young people, you can get the best out of them. Oftentimes, if you find where their passion is and you can channel that and you can give them boundaries around that, but also incentives, that's a real important way. So I was like, I'm going to be a PE teacher. That's what I'm going to do, Yeah. So I went to college, finished university, went to get experience working in a school, decided I didn't want to be a teacher. But my capacity was as a mentor.
Yeah.
So that was giving me real good experience though of being back in the classroom. And I was even learning things that I was relearning.
Yeah.
The kids were struggling with certain questions. I was struggling with some of those questions. And I was like, okay, I knew that even though I'd come out of university, I was like, my real foundational level of learning really needed to improve as well. So that's when like I get a real passion for education really kicked in for me, but also working with the individual as a person. So I've got a background in counselling. I didn't want to go to university. I've got the highest qualification you get at college level, but I didn't want to go to university because I didn't want to be a counsellor, but I knew that I liked the principles of counselling.
Yeah.
Then I went and got a qualification in NLP, neurolinguistics. That was really powerful for me because that was kind of like, it's almost diametrically opposed to counselling slightly, where like, like counselling, you could be seeing a therapist for 2 years. I know it's very Americanized, isn't it? That, but I think with NLP, if you see someone more than 6-7 times, they would look at their practice. They would look at where am I going wrong? Because it's all about solutions and all about empowering the individual to find the solutions for themselves. So it's very like the process is, I find, far quicker, and that's what they want. They want that person to get to the specifics. And I think that's where I think at the center of what I do and how I've tried to build my skills is how do we empower people to find solutions for themselves that feel right for them, that they know organically feel right for them, and that's not any outside influence. So people building is what I'd say is at the core of what I do as an individual.
Brilliant.
Just on that,
Sorry.
no, just on that, and I've just got a question. Do you think by seeing both sides of kind of that being alongside someone for a long period of time and that kind of quicker approach, it's kind of give you them skills from both angles in the sense of understanding your young person? Because I think if we look at why we're so successful in what we do, I think a lot of it comes down to connection and that kind of how quickly you can build that connection with a young person.
Yeah.
But then what that looks like moving them on their journey, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
just when you were speaking then I can number one feel the passion, and we speak about this often in the sense of when you're passionate about something it comes very naturally, don't it? But actually just listening to you then it straight away, like I always listen to why is someone so successful in what they do, and actually by you sharing that experience then it's kind of like you can see both sides of it when you meet a young person. Does it feel like that?
That's a really good observation from yourself. Like, I mean, I did miss out a chunk where I was a family support worker for 5 years. So that I worked in intensive family support. So I used to go to like case conferences where oftentimes, sadly, children were, removed from their parents. And so like working intensely with families, that was the longer period of time. But I think that like within that process, it's kind of always what you're trying to do in that process with those families and with those parents specifically is you're trying to empower them, and you're trying to get them to a place where they are able to accept where there's gaps maybe in parenting, accept where there's probably historical trauma and issues.
Yeah.
And people need almost a permission to get to that place, because a lot of the times with life we create these like it's that armor, isn't it? You kind of arm yourself, and you don't want to admit that there's areas where you might need support. And I think a lot of that is about building the relationships up, and that's where it can become more long term, because someone needs to feel like they've got the space and you are the right person that they can open up to and be vulnerable with. And a lot of the times they're vulnerable with you regarding particular issues that they know would be, like alarm bells for professionals. So it's like walking that tightrope of I'm a professional, but I'm also a human being. I also got empathy and compassion for your situation. And the only way we're going to change anything is by being honest about it. And that's why, I never had, in all the times, even if I was at a case conference and I had to say to a parent or family that, I don't believe that right now that you have the capacity to care for these children. Never once did they have a go at me.
Yeah.
Like they might have had a go at other professionals in the room. They would always give me a hug outside. And I thought, what I reflected on that was being honest and being present with the families. They felt like I was a part of them. So, if if I'm doing a home visit and the house needed tidying up, I'm not going to go to a textbook version of, I'm going to get the marigolds on.
Yeah.
I'm going to be part of the family. And I feel like by doing that, you build that real connection, like you said, and people are more than happy to hear some harsh realities from you. If you feel like you need to give that feedback, if they feel like you're on board with them and that you're willing to pick up an oar and you're willing to row with me to get where you're saying, because oftentimes we are educating them on, look, this isn't where it needs to be, but this is why, and giving context. And as long as they feel like you're part of that, you're willing to help them genuinely, then I feel like you can give people harsh truths if they need to hear it. Because that is support as well, equally.
And I think I'm going to move on in set jokes. Me and you'll talk about this all day, and then Gareth won't even
apologies.
tell us about it. No, this is
Mate,
it's normally me and you, to be fair, right? But again, like I just love that authentic. Like we talk about it in all the work that we do is authenticity, isn't it? And I think you can have any conversation with anyone when you come from an authentic place, and there's no agenda. Like you say, just putting the marigolds on and working alongside someone, it just creates trust, it creates connection. And I think that's when you can then be open and transparent and honest, and it's respected because it's not coming from a place of harshness or nastiness. And I think that's probably, again, reflects in how we work with young people. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Gareth, what about your history and background? We're going to hear now about the football, ain't we, mate? Come on.
So I not as dynamic as Joe. My career wasn't as varied, I guess. I think starting to work with young people was in the capacity of a football coach, which I started to do at the age of 16. Done that for many years, to be honest, in various different areas of the city. So mostly in the city, Birmingham, which gave me a good grounding and understanding of how different communities work. So I really enjoyed that. Went to university. I'm not sure I wanted to become a teacher, but I knew I believed in education. And if we're being very transparent, the holidays were always something that was like, okay. So, my dad's a bit old school, and he was like, son, you're either going to uni or you're going to work. Didn't know what I wanted to do for work. So I thought, okay, I'll go to university. Graduated from university, done a 3-year degree in sports coaching, sports science and community studies. It was then, I believe, that the University of Birmingham have changed it to coaching sciences now rather than community. 3 months before I graduated, I got a job with Connections. So, the last couple of months of university I was doing my exams, but I was also working, and that was as a key worker in the Black Country, so towards Stourbridge. So again, working in a different part of the West Midlands that I hadn't really had access to before. Young people with different complexities, different issues, a different understanding of how the world works. So that was good from going to inner city to slightly out of a city. Worked there for around about 6 months, working with young people regarding their mental health, behaviour, and looking at their aspirations for the future. Then went to work in a high school as a mentor initially. Again, teaching wasn't something that I was kind of overly thinking about. The degree was there in the background. So I took a pastoral role in a high school, which again I enjoyed. I enjoyed the aspect of working with the young people around their education, but not specifically being the person that's giving them the direct curriculum education. And again, I was there around about 6 months and kind of just thought, am I using my degree? Am I not using my degree? So I went and done my teaching qualification. I was a PE teacher for 15 years. So I worked in high school.
You're only 32, mate. How's that possible?
Started coaching at 16. You had it all up.
That's why I've got wrinkles. I've been working since I was about 6.
Massive paper round.
Yeah, the paper round was Birmingham to Glasgow, via Cardiff, and then I come back round. So I spent the vast majority of my teaching career in FE in college. Also done some associate lecturing at university, where I started working with teachers around their teaching practice, which is something at the right path that we do have a passion for. I want to work with the young people, so does Joe, so does Kerry. That's why the organisation was formed. I'm a massive believer in education, but I'm also a massive believer in the fact that not all education has to come from a textbook and has to come from the perimeters of a classroom. So I do respect the national curriculum, but one of my, I don't want to say it's a frustration because it's quite a negative word. One of the things what I did factor into my decision to come away from teaching was, I think it's a very results-driven industry, very data-driven industry, which I understand. You know, if we use football as an analogy, as we always do, we know that the wins are the ones that get the points on the board. And I felt that I wanted to make an impact with young people that wasn't specifically the end result from an exam. Yeah. How can we prepare that young person for life after an exam, life before the exam, and actually support them in what they're facing, as opposed to them just being an exam and a statistic at the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's not a negative for me on education. I just think in the society that we live in now, there's so many different facets and factors that contribute to young people achieving whatever level of success they have. So, you know, straight A's. I'll give a shout out to my nephew Max right now. I got ridiculous results last week and cost me a couple of quid. God bless him. Fantastic kid though, so I don't mind. That level of success for him is achievable. It was great. Yeah. One of the messages which sometimes we encounter, and I think it's probably a historic message, is, oh, if you fail your GCSEs, you're done. Yeah. And that was something that we like to work around, because people will measure success differently. For one young person, them turning up for the exams is a massive success. And a lot of the work that we do with the young people is, you know, we say to them quite frequently, don't we? We don't teach you what to think, we teach you how to think. So how you measure your success and failure can be personal to you. And there can be a plan B, there can be a plan C. We don't want to put you, pigeonhole you into an area where, okay, you failed your maths, your English, your science. Well, what are you doing now then? And
absolutely,
that's one of the things we work on with young people frequently, in terms of where are your qualities. And sometimes in the national curriculum, because it's structured and it has to be, young people don't find their quality through the curriculum, because they might be quite expressive or creative, and maybe the curriculum doesn't support them to do that. If they're a graffiti artist, if they're going to be a bricklayer, a plumber, a comedian, an actor, maybe they don't explore those things, because from the age of 4 we go into the school system. We are almost told what we have to do up until the age of 18. And there isn't always that flexibility for the young person to work out, actually, what's my gift? And it's something Coley talks to me about a lot. Because if you do find your gift, then all of a sudden the channels for future opportunities, for motivation, for enthusiasm, for opportunity, they all expand. Absolutely. So we have the opportunity to deliver a different type of curriculum to help the young person raise self-awareness. And I think if as an organisation, similar to yourselves, if we can do that, it's a little spark behind a young person to think, okay, well, actually, I'm deemed to be unsuccessful in school, but the lads or the ladies, in our case, in our staff team, they've actually pointed out that my communication skills are actually excellent. They've actually pointed out that some of the key things I need to be successful in life are the fact that, you know what, being 5 minutes early means I'm on time.
Yeah.
Responding means I'm being respectful. Being able to look somebody in the eye. Being willing to put my hand out and shake a hand. Being confident enough to sit down with a professional that I don't know and be honest and open with why I have made the choices that I've made. Being open and willing to understand that the choices that I make can have an implication on what I can do in the future. And I think if we, as a collective, and there's other fantastic organisations out there, you've said, we achieve some success. I've heard of some great organisations out there. And I think the world that we're living in now is increasingly complex. Young people are becoming increasingly didactic in their learning. They're taking a lot of their information from unreliable sources, I think you would say, because we all have access to one of these. It's very difficult to monitor what they're learning. And if we can have some impact to help direct them in that learning, not to say, no, that's wrong, but to say, why do you believe that? It's a great plug.
Lovely segue. This is the segue of all segues.
To be honest, I have just knocked one down for you. Crack on and finish in the 6 hour. But if we can have that impact, and as a collective, that's one of the things Joe and I were looking forward to about today. We don't believe that we're the only answer. Yeah. We believe there's many other people that can have the impact, and ultimately, we want to have a positive impact on helping young people into adolescent, into adulthood. Because if we're not doing it, then we will keep hearing the news stories about the problematic behaviours of young people, and they are there. We understand, but let's support them.
Yeah. And I think this is so important to me, like how you lads summarise this. And I wrote on LinkedIn last week, it's like, when we put this collaboration together, like there'll be people out there that look and go, no, we're just protecting our baby. Like, we don't want to go and work with other organisations and other companies. And we look at it and go, how many companies can we work with that can add value to children? Because that's why we're doing it. We're not doing it to protect ourselves. We're doing it to protect the future. And that means investing. And that's why we've got Inspire and Inform in the future generation, because we can't do that on our own. We can't. As the mentoring project, we can't do that. And we can support and we can help. But as you two were both speaking then, I think this is where my journey, and I think the admiration and respect for what you guys do and who you are as people, because when we not only speak about the mentoring side, which we do a lot of, we're also looking at the education system itself. And the more as it moves, there's more and more children with more SEMH struggles, with more diagnosis, with more difficulty. And again, just if we just quickly, Dave, just touch upon Aspire and Thrive, because what actually happened about 6 or 8 months ago is the reason I got involved with Aspire and Thrive is because it's everything that you've just said, in the sense of that, not just looking at the kind of educational from 4 years old all the way through to 18, what it looks like. It actually moves through to what Aspire and Thrive is. Do you just want to touch upon, for anyone that don't know, what Aspire and Thrive do?
Well, I think what you guys have talked about today is a very similar ethos to what we have at Aspire and Thrive. And I think, Jack, what you just said is really important, because I don't think anyone owns or should own or can own the right to deliver and helping services. Helping services are there for everybody, by everybody. And we spoke a little bit at the start, just before we came on there, didn't we, about different approaches and different values and different ethoses and how important those things are. And I think from our point of view, one of the things that's important for us is we think a lot about, actually, we have a passion and we have a vision and we have an idea of how we want to develop and deliver services, but we all have different things to offer that and different things to bring to it. And sometimes we think, what's the task? The task is, when we break everything down, it's humans helping humans, isn't it? It's relationships, it's connections, it's preparedness, it's transitions, it's safety, it's consistency, it's empowerment, it's enablement. And actually, for us, we have experiences and we have some attributes that allow us to do that. But we also know that, we can't be everything to everybody, and nor should we be. And we want to continue to keep learning as individuals. So for us, for us to be the best version of ourselves individually and collectively, and to deliver a service that we think is really helpful for young people, we think part of that is building connections and relationships ourselves, not just as an organisation, but as adults and as humans, because that enriches who we are. And it gives us different things to think about and different questions to consider. And even say, I was listening to you guys thinking, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, that is. And I wonder what I think about that and how that will help me go away from today and be a better version of me. So just listening to your passion today and what you guys have shared and your journey, that's been massively important. And what we do at Aspire and Thrive is we try and provide all of that and some of that individually for children, young people, whether it's primary, secondary or post-16. But essentially what we want to do is, through an alternative provision, and we do have academic courses, we do have accredited courses, that is a big part of what we do. But we talk a lot to the people that we spend time with and who give us their time, is actually, I think the formative task for us is helping our children and young people get to a point where they can take part in academic learning or accredited learning, because socially, emotionally, personally, they're able to move from where we met them on their journey to a better place and be a better version of them. Because whatever they do from an accredited point of view, an academic point of view, and like you guys spoke about really passionately, we believe education and we're supportive of education, the curriculum. But we know for some of our children, young people, that to get to that point, and even not just getting to that point, for it to be sustainable and for it to transition into other aspects of their young adulthood, it's got to be meaningful and purposeful. And sometimes we've got to take the time to be mindful about our children, our young people, that their families, their communities, their societies, their ecosystems, and help them navigate some of that or all of it in equal measure, so that the learning and the mentoring can be beneficial in equal measure. And that's what we tried to do at Aspire and Thrive, is to have an opportunity for children to be safe, to feel safe, to be safe, to have positive experiences, to grow and develop, to challenge themselves, to push themselves, and to have some hope and aspiration for the future. And I think one of the things that struck me listening to you guys talk really authentically about your experiences and why you guys at The Right Path do what you do. I sat just listening thinking, yeah, that really sits comfortably. It really aligns. It's exactly the conversation that we had at the start of what we did. And that's why I think, for us, relationships are so important, because it helps us keep doing what we do. Absolutely. It gives us encouragement. It gives us motivation, and it gives us learning as well. And again, we can have that togetherness to have a broader reach. So there's a lot of very similar things we do at Aspire and Thrive to what you guys do at The Right Path. So brilliant.
No.
And I think this is, as we've spoken, and again, although we've been in contact and I sent you a copy of the Growth Mindset book 10 months ago, whatever it was, when everything that we've spoke about was the reason why I brought the Growth Mindset book out first. Because when I look at over the last 3 years doing all the work that the Mentoring Project have done with the VRP and the other contracts that we've had, and I've also done some work with the Mentoring Project with young leaders across the West Midlands, who are a group of young people that have been brought together by the VRP. And they are ones that have created programs, the Changemakers program that we delivered. And I've sat with them for hours listening and taking in and presenting the Changemakers program. So with that sort of it, I got to work with head teachers, pastoral teams, safeguard leads in probably over 100 schools in the West Midlands. And the things that always strike me is when we're looking at children that join gangs or children that become exploited or the difficulties they have with their body image and things like that, is a lot of it comes back to themselves, self-worth, self-belief, confidence, and all these things. And again, it's that at a young age, we don't understand the power of failing. So actually, sometimes if we look at where we are today and why we are what we are,
there's a lot of failure.
Lots of failure. And we embrace it. But actually, at a young age, who's talking to us about that? Who's saying it's okay to fail?
They rarely see failure, though, don't they?
No.
Social media shows the success stories, and they rarely see if that's their main avenue for information.
And I think alongside that, I've been really disappointed over the last week looking at social media posts from parents and family on exams.
Right, okay.
And the pressure that's generated.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, and again, we have to recognise these things, that sometimes we'll put pictures of children up, but we don't put all the children up, we just put the ones that are doing well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that go on with self-esteem with children that I think sometimes we don't recognise. And actually, some children they could come from a fantastic home, but still get lost. And you get some children that actually have just had struggles for a long period of time. And that was where the growth mindset kind of thought come from, in the sense of, do we look at in the shadows first? Because this is vital, the teens understanding the dangers that they face today. But actually, can we build them first? Can we generate some resilience within them? Can we get them to actually look at life and go, we build their self-belief that much they don't need to follow. There's a fight down the road. I ain't going.
Yeah.
I don't need to be part of the crowd.
Don't need to put it on Snapchat.
And this is the thing, but actually the more we can build out the self-confidence in our children, the resilience, and like that's what it was the passion that drove which part of the big book do we bring out first. And that's why we started with the growth mindset. And that's why when I talk to you guys, I love it, because we don't look at English, maths and science. We look at life and we look at the struggles. And like, I've sat with thousands of children over the last 3 years, and they tell me, and they're literally honest about it. When we look at the program that the young leaders made, tons of it, the first chapter's on identity.
Yeah.
Like, they are saying, we need your help.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't believe there's some very difficult conversations in this book. And I don't believe schools are in the best place sometimes to want to be able to talk about them, because they're difficult.
And that's not a negative on
No,
schools.
not at all.
That's something we've always said, isn't it? It's if I reflect back onto my time as a teacher, I was very aware of the curriculum that I was delivering.
Yeah.
Teachers do a fantastic job. Let's
Yeah,
have it right.
without a doubt.
Without a doubt, if teachers wasn't there, the issues with our younger generation would be far superior than what they are. There's also a level of, do they have any knowledge and understanding of how to deliver certain sensitive topics? Some of the stuff that we've done, isn't it, working with the staff in terms of how do you structure that? I think people can be nervous to deliver certain things nowadays because they don't want to appear to be prejudiced or trying to impart a particular view of themselves on something. So I understand the complexity of why schools may show apprehension at times of doing so. But that's why for Joe and I, when we spoke to you, Jack, about what involvement we can have and what it looks like moving forward, it's important because I think what that does as well is provide a blueprint for staff to have the conversations as well as the students to be able to take a little bit of responsibility for their own learning off a trusted and reliable source, which is very different to a lot of the sources that they're getting elsewhere.
No, and I think you're absolutely spot on with this. And I know through going into some schools and like we get to work with a lot of teachers, don't we? Yeah. And we know what an amazing job they do. And I think sometimes when I speak to them, they're like, yeah, we're told just to shut kids down when they talk about Andrew Tate, or we're told to shut people down when there's. And I'm like, that's not their fault. But I'm like, so who's educating that?
Garners more interest, doesn't it, from a young person?
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? The more we push someone away from something, probably the more they're going to go back and research it, because it's going to create that, the inquisitiveness. And again, I think that's why, if I was to talk about like what kind of fields we have expertise in, I think it's that, you guys have got the unspoken truths, and I think it's that, we spoke about that a little bit today. It's about opening them doors to go, do you know what? We can have them conversations in a safe environment. And again, what we try to do with these books is create them so they're an absolute, brilliant piece of work for mentors, but also your children that look at these and go, I don't feel like any of this is an issue. They could go through it on their own if they wanted to and kind of start labelling what it looks like. But I think when we look at, if we just kind of move through kind of some of the topics within this, I think when we start off with like online safety, social media and gaming, I think now when we look at, like we do a lot of work on CCE and CSE, I think when we're looking from these topics, if we go back to when we were kids now, if a young person was going to be exploited, it'd probably be someone waiting outside of school. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or down a park, where now our children are 2 clicks of a button away in their bedroom for a predator or someone to, get in touch with them or contact them. And again, I'm guessing this is stuff that you guys come across all the time and what you're doing. Yeah. And it's how could we put it in the book where it doesn't scare people, but it gives young people a realistic view of what it looks like. And I think for me, what I've found working with the young people that we've worked with over the last few years is they're educating me every day.
Yeah, they know a lot.
When you look at this, we've got stats within here, like there's 150 apps and games that are being used to exploit children. If you asked me to name all 150, I'd get nowhere near.
And that's today, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we don't know what the future looks like. The introduction of AI.
Yeah.
That's going to make the complexity even higher. Yeah. Because there could be, computer generated people they're talking to that, I'm not me very well. I'm not that techie to understand the full perspective of it, but it's worrying. Because like you said, I think when, speaking for myself as a 43-year-old man, if I was in my bedroom, I was safe. We didn't really have that access. Yeah. And when we're talking about the safeguarding of young people, sadly, I don't think there is that privilege anymore of knowing that when you're in your, as a parent myself, when my children are in my property, or the young people that we work with, when they're laying their head, wherever that be, can we say anybody's safe? And I think it's a difficult pill to swallow, to be honest.
And I think that's a thing for me, a massive thing, because it doesn't matter if you're growing up in affluence or poverty. Social media is social media. And again, I think for something, and that's why we've got this right at the very start of the book, because young people can relate to it. You know, if you, you know, we done some work with some year 5s and 6s, and I would say 80% of year 5s and 6s have mobiles.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you're looking 9-year-olds, 80% roughly have got mobile phones. And then I got them to keep their hand up if they'd ever been contacted by anyone that they didn't know online. Probably only 5% of hands went down. The teachers looked at me like, what is going on? And that was over 100 schools. Yeah, that was a big piece of work.
That's the reality, though, isn't it?
And that's pandemic, isn't it, as well? When you look at that kind of number of young people who are vulnerable and potentially at risk, that's huge. Like you say, that's now.
Yeah.
The advent of AI, the types of apps and technology that will come out tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. Keeping pace with it is a huge task, isn't it? And like
It's
you
how
say,
they're tracked, isn't it? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
It's negligence, though, isn't it, really, as well, though, from a government perspective. You know, when we have conversations around, you know, when young people accessing pornography, the ages that, from the conversations that we've had with young people around the first time they saw a sexually explicit image, how old were they? It's lower than the government statistics. What we found, and we've been to over 100 schools. And so, like, that's quite alarming. And it's interesting because sometimes, like, we'll go to schools and they'll ask us, you know, like, have you got a consent form for us to have these kind of conversations with young people? And we're like, why don't you ask the parents whether their child's got Grand Theft Auto? Why don't you ask them if they got the internet? You know what I mean? Like, it's easier to watch a pornographic image or video than it is to put on a bet online. And I'm like, how is that possible?
100%.
When we know the damage psychologically that causes. And also the change in, like, there was obviously the physiological aspects in the rewiring of the brain, and, you know, like, but then there's also the communication and relationship side around expectations of what young people start to have of themselves and others. Do you know what I mean? So, like, the government has all the data around the impact of sexualizing children and young people, but we're doing very little to safeguard children and young people. And
Certainly feels that way, doesn't it? And we've created it as adults. The kids haven't created vapes, have they? The kids haven't created pornographic websites. You know, it's something that has been created by adults, and the impact it's having on children. And then collectively, everyone says, how can we make this better for kids? You know, it's almost like we've detonated the bomb. It's now gone off, and it's like, what do we do then?
For me, it's like, this is why, you know, resources such as this are so important, because it's like, for me, I look at it as an inferno, and we're turning up with super soakers. Do you get what I mean? Like, and ultimately, all we can do is sow the seed, have that conversation. How many conversations did we have with our elders when we were younger? And the penny probably dropped when you was 24. I remember that conversation that my teacher had with me, actually, or whatever. And I think that from our perspective, we haven't got a cape on, none of us. So it's like, we just want to have thoughtful, you know, thought-provoking, meaningful conversations. No topic is off, you know, boundaries. We provide that platform, don't we? The Mentoring Project, Aspire and Thrive, The Right Path, and other organisations. We're just here to give young people the permission. It's okay, we can have this conversation, because you're exposed to it anyway. So why don't we just have a conversation about it? And then whatever you choose to do, with self-awareness, with raising awareness and insight, comes accountability. So at least now, if you're going to make that choice to, you know, continue vaping or continue watching pornographic images and videos, at least now you've got some awareness of what they might see as just a potential downside now. I didn't realise that. I need to at least factor that in.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's why Gareth mentioned earlier about, we don't teach you what to think, we teach you how to think. Critical thinking needs to be part of the curriculum. And we really need to encourage that aspect, and we try to almost remind young people, actually, how much are you thinking for yourself? That's what, you know, when you mentioned about, you know, not going down to the fight, it would be critical thinking, wouldn't it? That would create that process for you to go, actually, how is this me going down to the fight? How is it serving me?
Absolutely.
what is driving my decision making, and that comes with maturity. But you know, I've got a saying that you're as old as your experiences. Forget your age, because I've met many people that are in their 30s and 40s that I would say are not as wise and as switched on as some young people that are 16, 17. So it's about getting to that place, isn't it, where you're able to think for yourself. And at least then if you do make that decision, you're like, you know what, Joe, I made that decision, or Gareth, or whoever you're talking to say, I made that decision and this is why. As long as you can have that understanding, then I think then you roll with the punches and you accept the consequences, I think, more.
I absolutely
more
agree.
thoroughly.
That's why I think the task that we do is so powerful, because whether it's critical thinking, emotional intelligence, those life skills are so important, aren't they? And don't get me wrong, teachers do a phenomenal job and schools are amazing. And like you said a moment ago, without that, what would the moral fabric of society look like? Probably a lot worse than it does today. But the permission, the time, the spaces, the places, the relationships, the connections, the safety, to have those opportunities to think about those things, to explore critical thinking, to practice it, to try it out, to be aware of how it might impact or affect us or others. That is, I think, the real beauty of what we do, because it's super tough for teachers or teaching assistants or educationalists sometimes in larger groups or dynamic groups, or when they're delivering curriculum, where they've got a task to stop and pause and to have that time, that real individualized, targeted, dedicated time, either in groups or with children individually. But I think for us, we have the expertise, the experience, the space and the time and the place to be able to really impart some of that. And like you say, it might be that actually some of that opportunity, people have to practice it, they have to think it through, and sometimes it can develop over time or later. But having the education and the enablement and the empowerment to know about it, to have the awareness and the accountability around it. Sometimes, in my experience, I think about my awareness and accountability, and that came later in life. Some people would say not at all, in fairness.
I'm not sure it's there yet, mate.
Exactly, it's a work in progress. But I think, I wonder, if I had a Right Path or the Mentoring Project or an Aspire and Thrive in my younger life, like you mentioned the gentleman that supported you when you were a young person, if you have that individual, that team, that place, somewhere to go, something to do and someone to talk to, might that have happened a little bit earlier for me? What might have been the benefit of that? I don't know. I'd like to think it'd be more helpful. And that's that I think is, when I think about it, is exactly what you guys were saying, how helpful and powerful the task that we do really is and can be, because that's the opportunity, isn't it?
I think the feedback from the kids shows you that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So there's been more than a few occasions where I know Cole has had it and I've had it. Usually when we're doing group work or assemblies or something, where a kid will come back and say, "Oh, thanks for talking about that." And it's like, okay, no worries.
Just some little things.
Thanks for talking about that. Thanks for raising this.
Yeah.
It makes me understand it a little bit more. A lad goes back to a teacher, apologises. A male student goes to a female 2 weeks after, apologises. School get in touch, just to let you know. And it's just from giving them the opportunity to have the discussion in a non-judgmental environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, comes back to not trying to sell the phrase. We're not going to get it tattooed, are we, son? But by teaching them how to think, not what to think. Throw it back on you. Why do you think that's wrong?
I think that's so important. There's a few things I just want to pull apart that connect with this as we go, and I think like the children become desensitized now through basically being able to see and hear what they do. I think that's a massive issue within society, and again, especially with online porn and stuff like that. I think the when you look at when we were 11, 12, 13, the access to porn was down here, in the sense of like there might be magazines on a shelf here and there and stuff like that. But now you're looking, again, 2 clicks of a button, it's there. And so the age of concern is now dropped massively, in the sense of where the harmful sexual behaviours kick in and stuff like that. What you were talking about earlier about that kind of giving children the chance to think, critical thinking. In this, we have questions like an online safety and gaming quiz. So actually, what do they look at as harmful?
Yeah, what do they look at as harmful?
Because again, who's there coaching us or teaching us? Because what's harmful to me might not be harmful to Dave.
Perspectives, isn't it? How they see it.
And I think that links with you. I was just looking at your title, like In the Shadows. And for me, is it Bane in Batman?
Yeah.
He says, I was born in the dark.
Yeah.
So if you're born in darkness, like, and how do you, like, you'd have to be in the light to know where the shadow is. You're shining a light where there's probably never been any light. So it's like, that's what I mean. It's like, how do we, that's why the conversations that we're having and what this resource does is shine a light probably where there's never actually been a conversation to even someone to recognize, oh, this is darkness. Like, and, you know, like, I know it probably sounds quite spiritual, that, doesn't it? But ultimately though, young people are often exposed to things from such an early age, they don't know any different. No. It's only till you're shining a light on it that they're like, oh, there is a shadow.
And I
Do
think,
you know what I mean? In that area.
And this is why these books are so difficult to write, because the one thing you don't want to do is over-educate at a young age.
Don't want to make it complex, do you, as well, in the wording? I think it's one of the things as a group we discussed, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I think this is the thing, is where's the balance? Again, when we look at things like self-harm's not in the book, because actually, realistically, when we look at how many young people are self-harm, there's far too many, but we don't want to over-educate and throw that at other young people that may not even be thinking about it. And then it's suddenly like, what is that? And again, it's a really difficult thing because, again, how, you know, when we look at teenagers using this book, between 13 and 16, there's a massive difference. But like you just said about experience, some 13-year-olds experience things that adults haven't.
Yeah,
so, you know, it's about when you're writing these resources, if you are going to allow a child to go off with the book, how's it safe but educational? If that makes sense. And I think that's always been so important to me. So, again, when we're looking at the kind of online social media stuff and things like that, we're asking them to design posters. There's kind of, you know, thought-provoking questions, but also when we finish with the online safety as such, we move into the exploitation stuff. And what I've tried to do with that and what you guys have looked over for me is looking, basically, we've got a little story here for a girl called Mia. And they're completely made up stories. It's not a young person I've been working with or anything like that. But we look more at a CSE scenario for Mia, but it's more open to interpretation for the young person. So it's not something that it's absolutely stand out and can trigger people, but what it does, it's thought-provoking, if that makes sense. And then we've done the same with the CCE question, child criminal exploitation, with a lad called Aidan. Because often when we look at grooming, coercion, manipulation, often the manipulators are so good at it, our young people don't even recognise. So what we've tried to do with the book is trigger thought. Actually, is this happening to me and I've never even thought about it? Because again, sometimes we do speak to older people as children and we don't understand their intentions. So actually, how can we trigger thought but not trigger someone in the sense of creating an issue for them, if that makes sense? So it's really difficult, and this is why it's so important that you guys have gone through the book for me, because it's easy to get them things wrong. Do you know what I mean? Because again, we do this work every day with students that are recognised to have these struggles, but a lot of students will be taking these books that haven't been recognised to have the struggles, if that makes sense.
You know, when sorry, just quickly,
No, please.
you know, I think we touched upon like key words, didn't we, when we was having when Gareth and I was going through it, I was like, sometimes when we mentioned CCE, CSE, I remember being in meetings like years ago now, what's that acronym mean? And obviously for young people as well, like what is exploitation? How do I put a sticky label on that experience? And that's a key way for you to know, because oftentimes you have to be able to label it. What am I going through? So, you know, people say, oh, depression, I suffer from anxiety. It's like, okay, we can use these words, and because they're very commonly used words, they might have heard their mum say, oh, I'm depressed, I feel anxious, but actually what does that experience look like? And being able to label it, and like going through your book, I just think as long as young people can go to a page where I can read that exploitation, that's a simple, something that I can digest, explanation of what that is, and now I can apply it now. So when I look at that case study, I can actually explore that from a place of critical thinking to work out where could the potential risk be now, because now I know what exploitation looks like, and I think
It's
that's
a reliable
really key,
source
isn't it?
again, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you could put it into any measure of technology, be it a phone, iPad, and sometimes it would come up with a genuine, realistic information scenario. Sometimes young people could perceive that as, it's not exploitation, I'm just a part of the gang.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, again, giving them an opportunity to gain perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you know, one person sees gold, the other person sees silver,
Yeah.
and it's, well, no, I'm not being exploited. That's my best man. No, I'm not.
But do you know what I've realised, just quickly on that as well, is that even if you ask adults, like, how would you describe exploitation? A lot of the times we haven't been asked ourselves ever in our lives, like, what does that look like? And so from an adult perspective, so if that's your mum or your dad or your carer, whoever you live with, and they struggle with breaking that down, then maybe that education, even from being at home, is not that. Because I always say education starts at home.
Yeah.
I think too much emphasis is placed on schools. It takes a village to raise a child. I love that saying. You know what I mean? And I think that school is part of that village. It's not the village.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, like, parents building up their vocabulary as well and gaining awareness. Like a resource like this would be really cool for parents as well. You know what I mean? That should be your first mentor, your carer, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? As well as, I think having resources like this available in all different spaces for young people is equally as powerful.
I think it's flexible enough to be that as well.
Yeah,
I think it can be used by, you know, it's multifaceted. Whoever wants to pick it up is going to gain some insight. Is going to raise their own awareness of the issues.
I think, do you know what I find? And there's a couple of things with that which I've found over time, which is quite sad, actually, is number one, I use this analogy often in the sense of, if I was to walk into Morrison's or Asda or Tesco's tomorrow, there's someone standing outside with a Dogs Trust thing. I like dogs, but I'm probably not going to go and put any money in it because it doesn't. Whereas, like, when you have a family member pass away with something, they're standing there with an Alzheimer's tin because you feel a connection to it, you're going to go and drop your money in.
Yeah.
So what I find with these resources when I speak to adults is sometimes it takes self-reflection. And they have to understand there's a problem, or they have to accept the fact that they don't know everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's tricky. And
100%.
So when I've, because I've thought many times about, and this is why we're doing this podcast. Number one is to support mentors or educators or parents who can watch this. And actually, I've got a daughter, and I'm not the best parent in the world.
I think it's
you know what I mean? I try my very best and I do everything I can.
But that's the point, isn't it? You try your best. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
but
the best
to
looks
standard,
like.
like if I challenge that as well, though, like who are you basing it on? And this is the thing, isn't it? It's like
what is the best to one person is completely different to someone else. And again, but it's about having that confidence to reflect and turn around and go, do you know what? Like, I think I'm a very good mentor. I think I'm very good with people. Like, but it doesn't mean I'm the best, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to sit with you two and learn something new. It doesn't mean I'm not going to watch a podcast later and learn something about being a parent.
And I don't think any organisation sitting around the table will say, we are the best. But that's why we make the point of, there's some fantastic organisations, and working today as we are, as three different entities.
Yeah.
You know, we will learn.
Yeah, but are we the best we can be with the resources and information we have? I would like to say that we
and that's what we're asking.
We're all striving for that, aren't we? We're striving to be the best version of ourselves. Yeah. It's not about being in competition with anyone else. It's about, and it's good that it's very important that we have that, and you guys have that as well, about being the best version of yourselves, because the moment that you start comparing is what we're talking about with social media, isn't it? But they say compareness is it's the killer of all joy.
Yeah.
Like they
Comparison is the killer of all joy.
That's it. Yeah. It's like the moment you start comparing is like when you realise, next door neighbour's just got a new range, and then you're like, you're looking at your you might have 2019 Audi like it's
2017.
But the problem is, Joe, and this is the thing, like, not that many people out there are reflective enough to look at life like that. And this is where probably an issue lies, in the sense of we can sit here openly, honestly, and go, we're the best versions of who we are at the minute.
We're trying to be day by day.
Actually, to be able to sit down, and I see this often with a lot of the stuff that I do, to actually reflect on your parenting, or like, it's difficult for us sometimes, especially when you're so passionate about it's the love of your life, it's your child, do you know what I mean? But actually to be able to reflect and go, well, I need to understand more about apps, or I need to understand more about gaming. Like, the easy answer is I'm doing everything I can. And I think this is where when we speak to schools, I speak to a lot of schools about this stuff, and they're like, Jack, we'll have an event where we invite all the parents, but only 4 parents will come. And it's really tricky, because we know that we don't know everything and we want to learn. But I think if something happened in that locality, unfortunately, that's when people would go, we need to go to that event.
Yeah.
And it's how can we raise that awareness?
Then, though, like, it's like, and this is what I mean, we've had schools say, 2 of our young people won't be coming on the programme because the parents aren't happy with potentially the content that they're going to be exposed to. And we're like, if we had a conversation with the parents, we'd be like, actually, your child's already exposed to it. We're trying to teach them and educate them how the risks associated with what they're exposed to. So I think the difference is, though, as well, is that obviously as a parent, you are actively playing a role in that. So like, that self-reflection is kind of like, is there potentially harm that I'm causing from my actions is very different than our perspective of coming in and observing and being able to pick apart certain areas. And I think that's where, like, so when I was doing the family support work years ago, one of the key things that somebody said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, when you work with parents, go for their guilt. That's where the conversations need to take place, where the guilt is. Because where the guilt is where the overcompensation is. Yeah, and that stuck with me, because a lot of parents overcompensate and feel like, I want to give her more, I want to give him more, because dad's not about or mum's not about. And I feel for my kids from that perspective. So sometimes that comes through food, through the diet. So they'll just give the kid what maybe not healthy for them, but it's what the kid likes, because it puts a smile on their face. And that's like putting, like, for a lot of parents, seeing their kids happy in that instant gratification, it gives the parent instant gratification.
100%.
And that's where that self-awareness part comes in. And that's where sometimes actually, that's why self-discipline is really difficult, but also disciplining your children who you love is really difficult. And that's where full compassion and empathy from my perspective to parents as well. But that conversation needs to take place, because often they're the gatekeepers to what children have exposure to, and carers as well, for those kids that are in care as well. So I think that,
I think the portion of the book that we spoke about that has been a new addition in terms of the questions that we put out, I think that's something that equally parents can utilise quite a lot. So I think the questions that we discussed, and hopefully they've been articulated in a way that's quite accessible to anybody. We haven't tried to make them too, based on academics or stats. It gives the parents a little bit of potential to reflect there as well. One of the questions where we're talking about social media, how many of the Rolexes that you see do you think are real? Yeah. Do you think the Porsche that young man is in or young lady's in is leased? Is it bought? Is it rented? Is it hired? I think there's a lot of value in that type of question as a parent myself, having that conversation with my own kids and say, look, what we see as a picture isn't always reality, but a lot of the time people will base their own reality on what they see in the picture, because we'll see what we want to see. I don't want to see the leased car. I just want to see the Porsche. So I'm going to believe that that's what it is. We don't often reflect back on that.
There's something on what you've just said. And again, when we were speaking about this beforehand, it lines up these two things. Like, we had a part in the book that looked at social influence. Yeah. And again, when we look at social media stars, when we look at the people that our children look up to, who role models from, whether it be parents, carers, but also we put in here separating the message from the messenger. Yeah. And how often do we just believe someone, even as adults, because someone is our role model and they say it?
100%.
And when this is such an important page for me across the board, and when you come back with that feedback, I was like, it just all rolls together so well, because actually now influencers have so much appeal to our children today. And when we look back when we were kids, and I know I refer back to it, was so different. So we now have to keep up to date with what our children are going through now. So when we sit down, and I was having this debate the other day, someone said to me, why do you listen to Andrew Tate? And I'm like, how do I educate children on Andrew Tate if I don't know what he's saying? Like, you know, at the minute we've got the far right stuff, like if I don't listen to someone that side and someone that side, how am I going to understand the argument? How am I going to be able to not tell children what to think, but support their thinking?
Yes.
And this is where this is so important. And again, whether you, and I always say this, I use American politicians because it's easy. When Joe Biden was in charge, you'd have half of America that go, we don't like him, he talks rubbish, we like Donald Trump. You'd have the other half going, we don't like Donald Trump, we like Joe Biden. Both of them at some point speak sense. Some of them at some point both lie because they're politicians in the sense of trying to get a message across. Often the agenda that they start with is not what happens. But the realistic thing is, what you do is you only listen to Donald Trump and don't listen to Joe Biden. Or you only listen to Joe Biden, you don't. But actually, you need to be able to separate who's doing this just for pure hate, who's actually got the Rolex, who actually, like, but what we tend to do is we live this life and we believe this life, this social media life, but it doesn't just have to, this is what social influence, it could be your mate down the park with the car's on finance.
But that's the reality of social media. It's only the good parts of people's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's probably just touching on in terms of the reality of stuff. That was my little man. So 5 years ago now, went to Dubai with a family. There was a influencer, if that's what their job role is now. I believe they'd been on some form of reality TV. A young lady was on our plane to Dubai. And this young lady, I don't know her name, so I wouldn't mention anyway, but she was taking pictures of herself in business and first class as we was coming onto the flight. And she was then sitting 2 rows in front of me. I wasn't in business class or first class, I was on economy. Yet then when it was checked on social media, it was portrayed that I'm either business or first. But the reality is you wasn't. You were 2 seats in front of me, probably losing your head because my son was only 6 months old at the time, the little man. And it was a tough gig. That flight was a tough flight. So how many young people are actually, you know, the questions that we say, that the part in the book that we're talking about, social influence, who's going to challenge that perspective? Because automatically that young people observing that might think, okay, so this is the avenue I need to take to get into first class on Emirates. So I need to do this. But the reality is very different to what they're seeing.
Yeah, and I think this is so. I'm just mindful of time because I know we'll be here forever, knowing us full.
Stands a shout.
So, but again, I think this is what happens when you're so passionate about something and you enjoy it. The conversation just flows by.
You can always do a part 2.
Yeah,
I'll just quickly touch upon the social influence part.
Please, mate.
So for me, the social influence is an experience that we've had even when we were younger. The difference is that we're not parents, carers, are not aware of the new influence. So, for example, my worldview was massively influenced from my father. So he had the opportunity to almost take control to some degree of how I viewed the world. So I went to church when I was a kid. So when you go to church, then you've got the biblical perspective on life. So then I hold that, and then when I go through life now, I've got like something in me that's like grounds me, and that can keep me humble, and that can shape my worldview. But that happened from a child.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. And then your parents, if you notice now, there's a real shift, isn't there? Like we might have information on a particular world event, but our parents will go to traditional, if your parents are still alive as well, they'll go to like the news. Mum will say, oh, I didn't see that. That's not what I heard on BBC or ITV, and I'm not picking one channel over the other, but I'm just saying that like we can get something on TikTok. There's an update on Instagram. It's live. Now people have their phones. So, and this is where like the challenge now is the social influences. The world's become social, where it was community based, wasn't it? Yeah. And first your home. Yeah. If you look at like your political leanings, when you were younger, if you did have any, even if you didn't realise they were that political, I got told when I was a kid, we vote Labour.
Yeah.
So much.
We're working class, council estate, just vote Labour. It was like, okay, I'll just vote Labour. You know what I mean? Like, and you just got told by it, and that was just that's your social influence.
Absolutely.
And now you'll have a kid who'll come downstairs, and both the parents lean left, and they've got their son or daughter's coming downstairs with some right-leaning political views, and that's what I mean about social influence. You know what I mean?
Changes the dynamics,
and that's what it is. It's about how do we, and to some degree, I don't think it's all bad.
No,
because I think that's really important as well, isn't it, to mention that.
Don't demonise it. We've got to be aware of the dangers of it.
But also having a different perspective. Like, I remember speaking to my mum about Donald Trump like years ago, and I was like, Mum, I was just like, you know, all I hear about now is Donald Trump being racist. I said, but he was in like hip-hop videos and that, and a lot of the artists were talking about him in like a positive way, and it was all about the flex with Trump's money and this and that, and then now he gets into politics, all of a sudden he's the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, but he never used to seem like that. So I was like, Mum, like, we've got to be patient with this one, we've got to sit this one out, do you know what I mean? And like, that's me, social influence, getting access to different information, bringing it down to my mum, who's very left-leaning, and he'll turn on the news and hear that Donald Trump is racist. So, and I think that's a really good example of where sometimes getting information, but also I'm an adult as well. So I'm able to also explore that myself, and with emotional intelligence, etc., we're able to pick that apart. Do you know what I mean?
And I think that's really important on what you just said there, and just using Donald Trump as an instance, because again, I used him, then you used him. It's the some of these people trigger us, you know, as adults. So there's no longer sensible thinking. So actually, if mum or dad are thinking this, or stepmom, or you know, foster parents thinking this, and the child's thinking this, there's no tolerance in the conversation.
No.
Like, one's going that way, one's going that way. The whole conversation gets shut down. So actually, this one never gets educated. These never get educated.
100%.
And actually, and that's what we do. Do you know what I mean? We don't go in there going, you need to think this, or you need to do this. It's like, why do you think that? There's no judgment here.
That's the most important thing.
And permission.
Giving the permission, rather than people say, it's a comment we hear quite a lot, be it whatever context we're talking about, be it politics or, you know, youth violence, or you can't say that.
Football teams.
That phrase comes out quite a lot, and that's something that we've seen in school, isn't it? And that's where the kids, young people, I think they appreciate the opportunity for someone to say, you can't say that. Rather reframe it and say, why do you say that? Why do you think that?
That's really interesting. So we have conversations all the time. We'll finish the score and they'll be like, you know, I had a really good conversation with the lads, and I was like, what makes you think that, boys? And like, even when like, so a large proportion of the male students that we've had access to educate around, you know, like violence against women and girls, misogyny, etc. Part of that conversation is around their understanding that women are lying about these things. But we try and explore that with them, and then when they're talking to us about that particular subject matter, I'm asking them questions about what helped you come to that conclusion. And it's because they're, you know, one of the common themes, what I think goes throughout your book is the world's become very zero sum. You're great or you're rubbish. You're someone or you're nobody. There was no the rapper, the footballer, the celebrity, they never went to prison, so it's a lie. And do you get what I mean? And it's like, actually, there's far more context involved in that. Like, you know, think about Michael Jackson, with the stuff with Michael Jackson and the children. It's like, if he paid off any family, there was an assumption that it was guilt. But actually, you'll find that, and I explain with a lot of the lads that we, amongst celebrities as well, they'll get legal advice that they'll say, you're better off paying off that case because that one's going to go to court, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's not about judging to conclusions on who's guilty and who's not. It's about saying that we don't have all the facts and we don't have all the information, and law works very different to public opinion.
Oh, massive.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and I understand it's very complex, and we don't get into the full complexities of that, but it's just like, same with the Trump thing, is that keep your powder dry, because it's very, sometimes you just got to stand back and let things play out. And it doesn't always mean that just because somebody doesn't go to prison that it means they're guilty, and it doesn't mean that just because someone goes to prison that they are guilty or innocent as well. So it's like teaching young people that the world's a very confusing place.
Yeah.
So within that, it's about all you can do is manage yourself.
And that's what I mean. You're allowed your views. Like, it's absolutely okay. And
It is.
if we can give you, if we can support both sides to an argument, because again, often when we look back at our role models and who got us to where we are today, like their views and stuff like that, it took a lot of self-reflection from me to turn around and go, everything he says is right.
Yeah.
Like, but that takes a lot to turn around and actually go, like, I'm going to start maybe working against my system in the sense of what I've been conditioned to. Well, if it says that on the news, it's got to be true.
Have you got an example?
Well, when you look, just for instance, and again, without going, what I don't want to do is go into too many details, but let's just look at the news and COVID, just for instance. There's this pandemic, you've got 50% of people now that believe it, 50% that go, it was there, but it was a hoax or whatever. But again, the way we're conditioned with media, for instance, is literally, if I look at my parents who don't access social media, they will tell you everything on the news is true. If I speak to a 13, 15-year-old that's on social media all the time, they're telling you it never existed. So now it's that, well, they might be right or they might be right. We don't actually know. But how can we bring a middle ground? Because actually, by the time you get a job, by the time you get into a real route, if you've got these extreme views, people are not probably going to want to work next to you. And again, it's how can we educate our children where my personal views shouldn't be pushed on children. Actually, I've got more views from my experiences. What we need to do is support children have experiences and create their thinking power. But that comes from having a different opinion, different support, different guidance to create and shape who they become.
Would you agree that some of the most difficult conversations to have with young people though is around if a young person is deemed to have an extreme view, you've got to remember then what we're actually saying is that the general consensus around your view isn't accepted in this community or in this country. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've got like localized and then national. And I think one of the hardest conversations we have with young people is if they do feel strongly about that particular view and they do that, if you like, they put their flag on that particular view and say, that's where I stand though. It's how do we support them with the knowledge but also the comfort to say that's okay. You can be, well, knowing that they're going to get pushed back, like you said. If you've got extreme views, then at some point it's like there's a wisdom with when to share those views or not. But without, because if we're gonna have a real conversation, we don't want young people feeling like they have to censor themselves. But what do they say? You have a freedom to share what you want to say, but not a freedom of consequence as well. And so, like, I think that's a real challenge. I think more and more so because, if you like, would you agree that social media it's the wild, wild west? The government's doing its best to crack down on that, but then there's the debate on what is misinformation, who decides what is misinformation. So
it's a web, really complex. Even as an adult, it's a web.
It's a web, and then we've got young people. So, like I said, like if we can see that particular worldview or perspective is going to marginalise that young person's opportunities. Yeah, let's say we're working with young adults as well, 17, 18, which we do, and I'm sure you guys do as well. Then we know they're going into the working world as well. It's one of the challenging conversations around that is how are you preparing for that as well, and I think that's something that we really have to acknowledge.
Yeah, and it's difficult, but what I think a big thing about what we do is supporting children tolerate other people's opinions and actually be okay. And a big thing for me and a big thing about the growth mindset book is it's okay if we don't think the same. It's absolutely okay.
You can have a difference of opinion, but you can also respect a conversation with somebody that has a difference of opinion.
But my point is when their view's not tolerated. So this is the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but they can only do what's in their power, can't they?
Yes.
So if we set them up to be able to be tolerant, to be able to be freedom of thought, but also be tolerant of others.
Yeah.
If someone else is not going to accept their view, and as long as it's not abusive, offensive, rude, then that's on the other person in my book.
But who decide? Yeah, I'm just challenging.
Yeah.
I'm just challenging. I'm saying that just from my perspective, it's like who decides it's offensive as well.
Well,
Do you get what I mean? And this is the
point.
this is the hard part.
If we and just on this little bit, when we look at the whole, easy example, the Andrew Tate thing. Who makes it wrong for a young person to be able to say, "I listen to this and I agree with that view"? Like, if it's not abusive, if it's not rude, if it's not offensive, like, but teachers will be like, not all teachers, but some schools like, we just don't want to talk about it.
Some students have been suspended. Been sent out of class.
But I think this is the thing. We need to be in a position where and I think we do it very well. We support the child's resilience, that kind of, you're allowed to have your views, you're allowed to have your thoughts, but actually, is this the right place to express it? Yeah. Because, actually, if you're with a teacher that might struggle with that, then can we give you the life skills and the expertise to be able to turn around and go, it's probably not best me having this conversation, but when Joe comes in, me and Joe are going to go to town on this. Do you know what I mean? But that takes a lot of reflection from the child. That takes a lot of building.
I think that's where there's still opportunities and a need to work with staff as well, though.
Yeah.
Around these topics in terms of making them comfortable, because there may be situations as well where staff working with children and young people have had their own experiences that, maybe they don't want to share that. If we look at statistics, particularly if we're talking about domestic violence, for example, they may have been part of, witness to, survivor of, perpetrator of. So to have the work, as much as we get in the young people to reflect and raise their own self-awareness, we also know that young person going in for a conversation with Joe or Dave or Jack, to have that one person is extremely important and gives them an opportunity to do so. But we also know that there's far more adults working with young people than just us.
Absolutely.
So if we can equip staff to have those conversations, to upskill their knowledge, to give them an opportunity to also reflect, to also be honest, to also be non-judgmental, the message can get out a little bit at a quicker pace rather than drip feeding. Maybe we can open some doors.
Absolutely. The flag situation that we spoke about prior to the podcast starting, that's what I mean about that's the one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, you might have a young person that's like, they're proud to be English, they're proud to be British.
Yeah.
But the world around them, and I'm sure, I don't want to share any misinformation, but I'm sure the government is cracking down on the flags.
Local councils, I believe, if I've read right, yeah.
So a branch of government then really then. So like so young people then can feel like, why is it that I can't? And that's where it's like that. Those are some of the challenging conversations where like they might even see that pressure externally, but they're like, I'm proud to be English, I'm proud to be British. Why can't I have my flag? And I think that that's really difficult then, isn't it? In those type of conversations. So what I'm just trying to share really for anyone who sees this podcast, the benefit of our conversations is that sometimes reflecting myself on some of the challenges that I've experienced working with young people, where they're in a space where they're like, sometimes the answer isn't comforting. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes there is that space where you're like, I get where you're coming from. And you know what I mean? And we can't always...
I hear that,
all the answers aren't always that comforting.
Part of our task is also when we're enabling people, we're empowering people, and we talk about critical thinking, emotional intelligence. Sometimes it's that bit of helping people be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you can't be comfortable with everything all the time. Because we all have different sort of experiences, different thoughts about those experiences, the context of those thoughts and experiences maybe shape our views and our habits, and you guys said earlier on about being respectful, being tolerant, being able to agree to disagree, being able to stand in somebody else's truth for 10 minutes and be curious as to I might not immediately, my immediate go-to is I don't agree, but okay, let's just hold on to that for a minute. Can I just go and stand over there for 10 or 15 minutes and be curious enough for long enough to wonder whether my initial reaction could become more of a response to having thought of and reflected around. And that, I think, is the benefit of what we all do in our organisations, with our young people, in our communities, in our schools, with our families, is we create those spaces and opportunities, don't we? And we offer those lenses to see things through, and those safe spaces to be able to say, okay, well, you can't say that. Okay, well, let's check that out. So, sometimes you can't say that. Let's think about it another way. And that just allows maybe less guilt and shame around certain things, and more curiousness, and sometimes more protection around other things, which is great. And I think that that's such an important thing, because that there are a lot of challenges, aren't there, and complexities and uncertainties in our task, in the work we do. And it takes great people that sit around this table, and other great organisations that aren't here today, and that that have gone before us and that will come after us and are here with us now, to keep that sort of opportunity available and alive for children and people and families, because that's where the work is in, that's where the task is, that's where the stuff is, where the growth is, arguably.
And I think that absolutely relates to this, in the sense of what we're talking about. We need to understand as adults what triggers us. When we're looking at our teachers, when we're looking at us as mental, because there's going to be things that we speak about with kids sometimes, and we're like, that don't sit that comfortably. But actually, that's okay, because we're human. But actually, we should be at that point where we know how to regulate ourselves. And we know how to get back into the room, to turn around and go, tell me more about that. Because there's things that have happened in our lives that have been tricky and been difficult and stuff like that. And I think with what you're talking about there, and again, I think there is that massive need and this don't mean that the adults that work with children are not doing an amazing job, but how much reflection is done on us in our lives. When you talk about being Labour conservative as a kid, like then when someone comes in, even as adults, you watch people argue in the pub all the time about whatever it may be, in low level things. So we're trying to ask our children to be mature and to see this through this lens, yet they're still immature by nature.
But also to express themselves and find their voice. So there was a lot of schools that we've worked in. There's been issues in schools where there was Palestinian flags in the school. And this is where there's political issues now that are finding themselves, because of social media, access to information as well, there's differing views. And then the teachers and the schools didn't really know how to deal with that. And so you've got one set of students expressing their voice and opinion. And do we want that for young people? Of course we do. We want freedom of speech, don't we? That we live in a democracy, freedom of expression. But then there's also the consequences to that. And it's a bit like saying we've had it in sport, haven't we? Where do we want sport being a place where we can project our political views? And they try their best, don't they? But then we had the bowing the knee. You know what I mean? So then people were then bending the knee, they were bending the knee, and then that had a political connotation then, didn't it, around certain issues as well. So it's I think schools are struggling with that as well. And it's I think what you touched upon before we started the podcast about, really having these conversations. I think the political world is what I'm getting at, is the political climate, the tensions in society finding their way into the sphere of school and education.
Why that's difficult for school then, because you're reactive, aren't you? It's very difficult to plan and prep for a discussion that you don't know is essentially required until the event occurs. And I think that's where, if I kind of bring it back into not only in the shadows as a resource, but the resources that are planned for the future, maybe that takes away a little bit of that apprehension from staff, that there is a resource there.
Absolutely.
That we can discuss these things, that we can reflect back on, that we can put a lot of the learning into the minds of the young people. So rather than being constantly delivered to and the young people feel like they're being spoken to or at, we're giving them a series of opportunities, be it the growth mindset, be it in the shadows, be it the books that, not trying to plug it for you, big man, but there will be more in the series, and that's something that's being discussed. I think it shows the importance of having the accessibility to these, because no one knows really what's going to happen with the state of the world moving forward to the end of today, moving into 2026, whatever it looks like. But to have certain things and certain resources that are accessible to the intellectual capacity of young people at different stages in their academic development, for this to be able to resonate with a year 8 student, but have the capability to resonate with a year 13 or somebody that's progressing into university, they're important to have.
Yeah.
Not just for the young people, for the people that are working with children.
Tools and a framework.
And I think the beautiful thing about this stuff is when you do look at your English, math, science, you kind of educated year by year in the sense of this is where our students should be at in year 7 and this is the curriculum. We don't have that with this. We don't have this with life skills. And that's what these are. These are life skills and these are kind of fundamental skills that I would probably say are needed more than your English, maths and science because this is your survival.
Yeah.
And if no one's speaking to you about the dangers that you're going to face today, you could end up in a really, really bad situation quite young or at an age that you don't know what's going on. And I think and that's a big thing for me. So like you just said then, when we look at moving forward, we're looking at obviously the next 3 books, but looking at things that, how are finances for students today or young people going into adulthood? And we spoke about it the other day.
People aren't talking about it, and the issue around finance is for me anyway, is quite complex to young people because we no longer see our own community. And by that, I mean, if you were raised in a particular area, as when I was younger, if I was raised in a particular area where the economic prowess in that area wasn't fantastic, but I only saw what was around me. So maybe someone would have a pair of Air Max, no one was wearing Jordans, maybe when the front used to come off your trainer, a few of the boys would be rocking them, but that's all I saw, so that was fine. Now we've got young people that are living in financially challenging situations, really challenging, especially when you factor in it's 2025 and the percentage of young people that are going to school without eating. That for me is like, wow, it's 2025. This is meant to be a progressive Western country, and this is where we're at. But now the young people are seeing finance through a different lens.
Absolutely.
And they don't understand it. And it's like, I'll get my first job. Okay, that first job might be 16 grand. What's that look like per month? What's the tax going to be? I can afford an Audi A3 then. Yeah. No, you can't, sunshine.
Yeah.
Also, just quickly, if parent and carers, same as social media, if they treat, if they're drawn into the social media sphere as well, and that you're seeing it from that perspective, and then you've got the finances side as well, like
who's role model?
Maybe some of the children aren't eating because some of the financial decisions in the home aren't appropriate for the financial situation that they're in. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of self-harm, I think, that's caused through a lack of growth, and that's not trying to be too judgmental, but because a lot of time we can only make decisions based on our education.
Based on the information you got,
but I do think a lot of it, like I say, really, it takes a village to raise a child, but it has to start as well, though, in the home, whether that's parents, carer, and then the rest of us, we all then are meant to be there to supplement that education and learning.
Absolutely. No, and I think that the issue that we've got is we could probably spend about 5 hours talking about this stuff just today. And again, I think the great thing for me is when you've got passionate minds together, you draw all kinds of new thinking out, new learning, new ideas, and I think that's a big thing for me, especially when we're trying to inspire change in people and stuff like that. So what we may do is have to book in a number 2 at some point just to go through the other bits that we kind of want to look at throughout getting the message out with the In the Shadows book. But can I just thank you both, because I know you've travelled as well today to be here for an early start. I appreciate it.
We'll put the invoice in for petrol, Jack. Before 2:15.
Oh, mate, you'll probably ask it for points or something like that.
Vouchers.
So Witherspoon's vouchers. So you can have your petrol, Gareth can't. No, I do appreciate it. And again, I want to say thank you again in person for obviously taking the time to go through the book with all the amendments that you come back to me with, because I think it's so important that my vision and my idea is not all it is, because there's so much value out there. And again, with Dave and Cam and the team at Aspire and Thrive and you guys, like, I've added so much value by sitting down with you and going through this book with you and picking it apart and what you've suggested. So again, the only people, well, not the only people, the people that are going to benefit from this is the young people that we work with.
I think from us, thank you for having the trust in us as an organisation to come to us as well. So we appreciate and we look forward to where this can go and what we can do moving forward and collectively try and help us.
Yeah,
really,
and I just want to say your attitude as well, like what you just touched upon about like not only sharing your work with us and asking it to be peer reviewed by us, but also like your attitude and your outlook towards creating a network amongst other organisations. And I think that a lot of people could learn from your example there. So I think anyone who does watch this that is in our space as well, I think it is about that, creating that network. Together we're stronger, aren't we? You know what I mean? And if you guys ever need any support with any ideas that yous have got and any way we can support you, then that's what we're here to do, isn't it? Ultimately, what are we here for? It's to help young people in the next generation, isn't it? So I think you're setting the right example. So fair play to you.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
guys.
Cheers, guys.
Appreciate that. And Dave, thank you for obviously just being you, mate, to be fair. Did you know what? This is amazing. This is the quietest he's ever been.
Oh, listen.
It's
because me and Cole can talk all day.
Honestly.
Well, I've met you guys, have I? And you know, although Jack talks incredibly highly of you all and the work that you've done and what you've achieved, you know, for me, I've met you guys in person and I know a lot about what you've done. So it was really helpful for me to sort of hear about your values, your passion, the things that are important for you, how you go about your task, the way you practice, how you think about delivery. And it's really important because I think, you know, I already know what I already know, but I don't know what you know. You know, and sometimes it's better to sort of listen more than it is to speak, because I've learned a lot today. I've learned a lot from both of you and from this conversation, and that's been super helpful. So I really enjoyed it. So thank you for
thank you for inviting us over.
No, you're welcome. No worries.
Right. Thank you for everything, guys. And like I say, part 2 will be coming at some point. Probably very soon, knowing us.
Sounds good.
All right,
Good.
thanks, guys.
Right.
Cheers. Thank you.